Now, dogman sightings go back as far as the 1800s in Michigan, but they have been seen all across the United States. Now, people often describe the dogman as having the face of a wolf or a coyote, the torso of a man, and the lower half of a wolf or a coyote. Now, it's often said that they stand between 7 and 8 feet tall, and they have these bright amber colored eyes. So, this is a story I heard from a guy named Sam. Now, Sam said he was in the Manistee National Forest. And one night, him and his girlfriend, they're driving down this pretty windy rural road. And he said as he was driving, he all of a sudden notices this truck swerve into his lane and swerve back over out of the way. He almost hits this truck. As he passes this truck, he sees up ahead why this truck swerved. There is something in the road and it's kind of hunched over. He slows down the car, turns on his brights, and he can see what looks like a wolf, but has, man-like features. And this thing is eating a deer. Now, he slowly drives by this thing. This thing recognizes them and lets out this humanly horrible scream. And he realizes once this thing has noticed him that he needs to get out of there. So he takes off down the road, and he said at the time his vehicle, the fastest it would go was about 60 miles an hour. This thing, whatever it was, started running after him, and it's keeping pace with him. And he's just, continuously looking back. Well, at the time, he said he had kept his window down, and he didn't even think about rolling it up. All of a sudden, this thing gets up to the side of their vehicle, and it reaches its arm in and grabs his shoulder and actually rips his shirt. Right at this moment, he's turning around a curve, and this thing breaks off into the woods. So he drives about a mile, and he thinks, okay, I've lost this thing, right? All of a sudden, they hear like a loud thumping sound on the back of the car. And when they look back, this thing is standing on the trunk of the car, and it just punches its hand through the windshield and starts trying to reach in the car. Well, he almost goes off the road. He slams on the brakes, and this thing just goes flying. And he said the next thing, it just took off running into the woods, screaming. So him and his girlfriend, they're pretty shooken up. They don't know what to do. They go to the sheriff's office, and at the time, the sheriff wasn't there. There was, one of his deputies. And they tell them, we seen this thing. It chased our car. And at the time, the deputy takes them individually into a room and is interviewing him. They're terrified. They're telling the same exact story. He doesn't know what to do. He calls up the sheriff and is like, hey, there's some kids. They say they seen this thing. They're pretty shaken up. What do I do? The sheriff says, send them home. Don't talk about it anymore. And he goes, but, it's kind of like, shouldn't we be telling people there's something out there? And he said, no, just don't talk about it. Tell them to go home. Everything will be all right. So he sent them home. And still to this day, he has this fear of driving through the woods at night. This next story I heard comes out of West Virginia. There was this guy who said that him and his friends had all went camping out in the woods in this particular spot. And he said during the day, they were kind of exploring this area. Well, they found this old wooden cellar door. And when they opened it, inside of it were all of these carcasses. And they said they all of a sudden heard something moving around down there. So they closed it and took off running. Well, they end up going back to their campsite and start telling stories, and it starts to get late. So this guy said he went back to his tent. He goes to bed. In the middle of the night, he said he woke up to water droplets dropping on his face. And he's like, wait a second, this is dog saliva. And he said when he looked up, there was this half man, half coyote looking thing standing over the top of him in the tent. And he said this thing was just sniffing him and kind of just moving around his face. And he said the next thing he knew, this thing just looked at him and put his finger in front of his face. And he said he fell asleep, and the next thing he knows, when he woke up in the morning, it was gone, and there was no sign of this thing. So they hightailed it out of there.